Today we're looking at the M50 again with the streaming setup through USB. You have that beta software. I have a bunch of lenses I'm going to try out with autofocus, with the focal length, so you can get an idea of what type of lens you might want to use for your setup. With the lens here, I'm decently far. I can measure that and put it on the screen. We're starting with the 15 to 45mm kit lens. I have the ISO set to auto, negative 2/3 exposure, just so the highlights on this side don't totally blow out. And also we've got f3.5 for this one at 15mm. I'll switch it up to 24 and the 45. See how it looks. Now we're around 24mm. In this case it's f4.5 for the maximum aperture. Same setup. Still nice autofocus, no issues there. And go to 45mm. Pretty tight. You can definitely see the grain here because we're at f6.3 for that longer focal length. You're on an 11 to 22mm lens. In this case, f4 is the maximum on 11mm. So you lose a little bit of light compared to the standard kit lens, but you get a lot more to it. So if you want super ultra wide, it's pretty nice. If you go ultra wide, you can put your camera a lot closer to you, but there is a limit because of the minimum focus distance, which is still pretty close on this lens. Nice autofocus, very similar to the kit lens. Here's 11 to 22mm set to 22mm. In this case, we're at f5.6, so we're losing quite a bit of light. Here's a 22mm f2 lens. I think this is one of the best options. It's lower cost, it's a larger aperture. The focal length is pretty decent for most setups like this. I'm sitting in about the same position that I was to start off. The downside, I can hear the autofocus a little bit more than the other lenses, so that might not be a good thing. It depends on how sensitive your setup is for the microphone. Right here's a Sigma 56mm f1.4. See, very close. Super not usable at this distance, but it does focus. Now we have the 50mm f1.8 with the standard adapter. It's going to look very similar to the Sigma, just have a little bit less aperture for it. Now we have the 50mm f1.8 with the Waldron speed boosters, so in the settings you'll have f1.2 available. I'm about where I would be with the kit lens and stuff like that. Still very tight, so not ideal, but again, working distance, if you're able to, with your mic and all that, might work. Here's the EF-M 32mm f1.4, still pretty tight, so it's not an ideal lens for this, but you do get that really nice blurred background. We're at f1.4, do a little autofocus. So this lens can focus pretty close, just nice. Come on. these are just the lenses I have in hand. There are a lot of other options out there in EF-M and also EF lenses that you'll get autofocus. See what might work best. The Viltrox Speed Booster actually did decently well with the 50mm lens. Of course, it'll depend on the lens, and I haven't tested a lot of lenses with that adapter, but it is an option to consider. I think I would personally go with the EF-M stuff because it's more consistent. You're not going to have any issues. The kit lens itself works just fine, but you won't have the super blurry backgrounds. I do like the 22mm f2 lens. Gives a nice little bit of blur in the background, and autofocus, as long as you're not moving around a bunch, you won't have any autofocus sounds. It's not super loud, but it's slightly audible, so just something to think about. The Sigma lenses, the 16mm f1.4 and the 30mm f1.4, I think those could be nice options, especially the 16. You don't have a lot of working distance. That would be probably very, very nice. So something to think about. The key takeaways here are focal length, aperture, and also the motor inside, how loud it is. With the 22mm, I think that's really nice in general, but then you have to deal with a slightly louder motor, and it's not quite as quick as some of the other ones. The kit lens is just fine, but you have the slower apertures. Just stuff to consider. 11-22, if you want that super ultra wide, that's good. I think the Sigma 16mm f1.4, I don't have it, but I think that would be a nice one potentially for this stuff. Of course, it depends on your setup, but in my case, it's about an arm's length away from me right now. So you got the microphone, you got the camera, and the focal length to consider. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this quick video. Not super exciting, but I think it's informational, help you out with your setup. Scott Banzai, thanks.